So next one is going to be Mikko Korpela. He's working in Reactor, and he has used to work also at the core team robot framework back in his times. And he's going to talk about parallel text execution using Pabot. Are you ready?
Almost.
All right.
Yes. Well, hello everyone. It's been a long day so far. I hope you have still some eyes for the next slides that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to talk about Pabot, which is a parallelization tool for robot framework test cases or test suites. But yeah, let's start with some existential questions. So usually people have their CVs here, but who the hell am I and why am I here standing in front of you? Well, yeah, my name is Mikko Korpela, and long time ago, about 3-4 years ago, I used to work in Robot Framework core team. And this is few days or 1 or 2 days old statistics from the Robot Framework core project commit history. And yeah, I'm this one here, that guy. And yeah, there's some beard at that point. I have now grown like 2 times so much. But yeah, we have other guy, the Janne guy, who has more beer. Can you please stand up? So this is another core developer. Jussi Malinen is here also. Yeah. And Peke, I think he's the one that with major commits, and well, there's a lot of other people also here from the core team, like Anssi. And Tatu is somewhere also. And I don't know if there's anyone else I'm missing out. Yeah, but during my time in a Robot Framework core team, I didn't do so much things in the actual Robot Framework core project. I used most of my time with RIDE, which is seen in this slide. So if you have some complaints about that tool, you can complain to me. But as you can see, not yet. As you can see, from 2014 onwards, I haven't worked on that project. But yeah, that was, for me personally, that was quite an experience. So there was, I think this is, like for my own personal learning, this was the most useful experience I have had so far. So the amount of people, the number of people who actually used that tool at that time was huge compared to anything that I have worked before that. So how many of you have used RIDE? Yeah, kind of, yeah. Makes me a bit scared here, but yeah. You can also complain to Janne about things. But yeah, actually I think one of the reasons why Robot Framework has become so huge tool is RIDE. So we had quite early on we had an editor that you can work with, and it had some good functionalities. Yeah, but as I was working for the core project, I also had like these ideas how to do different kind of tools for the community, and because we were in direct contact with the end users all the time, we were giving trainings around the world, and people emailed us a lot about their problems and complained about things in RIDE and etc. So I had kind of basic idea what is important for the community, and kind of a broad view on that subject. But one of these things that actually lift off was parallelization and Pabot. So I think before Pabot, there's been a lot of people doing their own parallelization things. Like you, for instance, had one in Texas Instruments, and I think Antti and Miska, you guys had one, and I don't know who has parallelized robot framework test cases. Yeah. So a lot of people have done this. So I thought that okay, this is something that I can extract to the core project, because there's kind of generic things that are happening all over. So yeah. So I started it, then it kind of lifted off. Now there's like, I just checked, there's now 160 stars. I like analytics, so now I have 160. You can start a repo if you want. Yeah. Yeah. So I think you want to learn why or briefly my history about how I came up with the idea of getting Pabot. So Tatu Kairi, yeah, you're waving there. Nobody sees you because you're behind everything. So, but I have a picture of you. So Tatu and me were working at the Core Robot Framework team in the year 2013. I think we had trips to different places in the world for 2 months or something. You can yell something. Yeah. So one of these training trips that we had, it was 3 weeks in India, in Bangalore. And this is, by the way, this is partly imaginary thing that I'm going to explain, but everything is true. So we went to India, and it was kind of interesting place to see, and I think everyone should visit there if you're in software industry. So Bangalore is an interesting place to be. So there's like, I think at the time it was like 8 million people, and there's cows in the streets, and it's just amazing. Amazingly different place. But we had really good trainings there for people. Met a lot of nice people there. One thing that I had to do there was that one team required that I would parallelize their test cases, the test executions. They had some problems with the test execution time. That's basically the reason why people start this thing. And well, yeah, then me and one guy from their team, we started working on that, and about 3 days later we had parallelized their test cases. And the end result was that the test execution for those test cases lasted 15 minutes more than the original. So parallelization, one thing I want you to know is that parallelization isn't like the silver bullet. You don't always get the things working with it. Yeah. And one comment from the client side, when we came back, was was this. Do you remember Tatu? Yeah. Yeah. So what I did after that, I kind of got pissed off about this. Come on, I can do it. So during my spare time, for some reason at that point I actually had some time, and I started coding on my spare time. And okay, I will do it. And I used some editor with the green colors, etc. And then I released it. Let's see. And what actually happened was that it kind of got to be used all around the world, which was kind of, I think it was pretty awesome to see thing actually lift off, because I've done like, I don't know, 10 open source projects, tried out different things. Like at one point there was this Zombie.js headless browser. I think you did a Phantom.js version, or someone did. I think anyway, robot zombie sounds so cool that I did this headless browser integration to robot zombie, but nobody ever used it. But then someone did the Phantom robot integration. That was kind of used, but nowadays I think Selenium also supports Phantom, and nobody uses the Zombie.js anymore for anything. Yeah. But Pabot instead is kind of used all around. Then the demo time. Now, how many of you have used Pabot? Okay, somewhat. How many of you haven't even heard about it before me coming here? All right. Well, I'm going to do the advanced. So here I have test suites, or test suite directory, which actually does these 4 test suites are there. So there's an imaginary thing that I'm testing, which has a ability to add an element to it, and then to modify those elements and remove those elements, and then you can log into the system and log out of the system. Yeah. So how do you use Pabot is that you have this is the advanced version, so you don't have to use all those options to. Oh, some test case failed. Well, who cares? You know, they flicker. I think everyone knows that. Maybe I'll execute them again. No, I don't. So Pabot basically splits those test executions so that each and every one of those suites files becomes a new execution. And then it uses, well, depending on your machine that you're using, it uses different a number of processes to execute those test cases on the same time. And this is the output that it gives. This also has all the features that I'm going to show you. So just going to, let's see, where does this go? Whoa. Here. So if we go to the log file, which comes here, which I have to put here, so we can see. So for setting up stuff, I have created this run only once keyword. So there's a built-in library in Pabot, which you can use to let your test suites interact with each other. So there's this run only once, which you can use to set up things inside your test cases so that they are only run once. So instead of having your setup run like 8 times, like in my machine, this will run it only once on one of the machines. Then, let's see what else. Then there's another option, which is, yeah. So those come from the resource file and babotlib option. So users.dat contains some common elements that are shared with the test cases. Then another way of distributing or having distributed test cases or parallel test cases is to execute the same test cases with different configurations, and Pabot can do that also. which is done with this -- argument file and some number configuration. So this actually runs those same test cases with two different configurations at the same time, or about the same time, depending on your machine. Yeah. Let's put them running again. Maybe this time everything works. And yeah, the main point, of course, is the speed of testing. So this took 12 seconds or 13 seconds. And if we go to the log file, if I have it somewhere, let's refresh that. Actually, the whole test mass execution was 22 seconds. So you get a lot out of there. I've heard, like on the slide, someone said that their 8-hour test execution actually takes now two hours. And I think you have had similar results in some place, yeah, etc. So speed is everything here. And because I have two configurations now from the argument files, argument file 1 and argument file 2, let's see if I can. It merges those on suite level, so in the log file. So this is the one that is run with the argument file 1, and this is the one with the argument file 2. And briefly, I'm going to show you what the data files look like. So argument files are basic document or robot framework argument files. So here's the elements that I put there. And the argument file 2 uses pig and dog instead of apple and banana. The data file uses that. This is the one that you can use to share information between the processes so that they don't collide together. So for instance, in this case, there's like, let's say, requirement that only you can log in with one user only at a time. So two parallel processes cannot use the same user at the same time, so they have to use different users. So here you describe that. Yeah. So that's the demo part. Let's go back. Where did you bought my plate? Yeah. So back to the existential questions. So why am I here still after 4 years of not actually being part of the Robot Framework core team? So, well, basically it's because of you, all of you. So the community is everything. And it's been a pleasure to make tools for you guys and girls. And well, I hope to make and improve these tools later on also. But my time is short. Not in this presentation, it's still 10 minutes, but I have other things in my life also, so unfortunately I have been doing those a lot. And that's why I'm here, because of you. And that's not it all. One of the learnings during my time of Robot Framework as a software developer, I want to share with you guys, because this is the key point I think that I actually have been able to use in other projects afterwards. So, in my opinion, development is continuous discussion between the development team, which is us. In this case, it's all you guys also, and the end users, which is all you guys and other stakeholders. And this continuous link between these parties crucial for doing anything that is valuable. And at least, and in big projects, this is kind of non-obvious, I think. It's so easy to cut this link off, but don't do it. So please let people talk to you and talk back to them. Thank you.
All right, Anssi.
Yeah, Pabot is a really good tool. Congratulations for that. What is your plan on that? Is it still maintained? What
Yes.
are you doing next regarding that?
Well, I'm currently doing this list of test execution, so it would be explicit what is executed at what order, and you could get more kind of control over what's the actual execution order. And if there's dependencies between suites that you want something to be executed before anything else.
Okay, thanks.
So your demo was showing the tests running in parallel on one computer.
Yeah.
What would be more interesting is distributing them across a lab full of computers or a cloud full of computers or whatever. And can you do that with Pabot? And is it done through config files or some other magic?
Well, it requires remote libraries. I think that is the most. Basically, you have the remote server library running on the other machine, and the tests executed at one machine still.
That's different than what I had in mind.
Okay, what's your solution?
Something where underneath the covers you're running Pabot somewhere.
Yeah.
So I would like Pabot to be run on a bunch of remote machines. So you would need some kind of remote execution capability to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Those things vary based on various technologies and things. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that requires more work with the robot framework core part also to get those integrations. It's technically very okay.
We wrote a Python Pybot distributed test runner at Texas Instruments.
Yeah.
That would take a config file that said what machines to run it on, and those machines had I called it my little virus. It was a server that sat there and listened for commands to run, and it would run them.
Yeah.
In an internal intranet type of situation, that was perfectly all right. And so that by doing that, I was able to remotely execute Pybot on a variety of machines, and we basically wrote a Python thing that sat above that and took a bunch of robot framework tests and load balanced them across a lab. Yeah. And we had to do that because what we were running was our 2 million math API test cases at TI. And it would still take many days.
Yeah. Well, that could work also, and actually has worked for you. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Quick questions. I saw that you do parallel things in one machine. The question is about the organization of the test cases that require previous test case to run before the execution. Is there some way how to organize dependency between test cases?
Currently, the execution is split from test suite level. So if you put them in the same test suite file and require the first one to be there the first, then it will happen. But as I said to Anssi, I'm currently actually developing that feature there. So you get more order control from there.
Another part of the question is like about the limits of parallel test execution in one machine. What is the real limits? Meaning like what is the real stack? Is like RAM, CPU?
Depends on the system under test, in my opinion, or my experience is that at least. So usually the testing system is so lightweight compared to the actual system under test that that is the one that actually affects the parallelization.
Now, what is your recommendation about the threading the test cases, in meaning like to not, for example, spend the time of paralleling? Because, for example, the usual execution could take less time than you will do it like in parallel. How you define this, gold middle, like to execute, for example, 10 tests in the time, or like 12 or 100?
Well, I think you have to find the golden. It depends so much on the context. What is the optimal thing? So you have to test it.
Oh, so run it.
Testing is good.
Okay, thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Just a quick question. What's the level of isolation between the different parallel tests? Are they threads? Are they...
It's processes. So underneath, it's running a number of Pabots currently, or depending on your situation, you can define other execution commands to be executed instead. But Pabot it's process level, and you have to use the Pabot lib to share some information because you don't have a memory that would be shared between us, different processes otherwise. All right.
Any other questions?
Yep.
So if I understood now, you're starting multiple instances of Pabot with multiple kind of suites like robot files.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be easy to extend the Pabot to like the distribution of different PCs? So for example, like you say, okay, you have some preconditions and call a SSH command to another PC to start their Pabot and previously distribute the robot files there via SCP or something like this. So you have the distribution. Do you think, or can you imagine that this could be an extension of Pabot? Like not using the remote libraries, but just calling the Pabot remote on a different machine. Because sometimes the request is also not the parallelization of tests, but the preconditions of environment. So for example, you have different interfaces on different machines. They are sometimes excluding each other. So you can't have one with 2 network cards and 4 at the same time. So you have to change environments.
Yeah. Actually, one idea that I had, maybe I will have some time at some point to actually implement these, it would be that there would be on those remote machines, there would be a server component that could actually broadcast the tags so that you could have tags that actually link that, okay, this can be run on that machine. So you would like that?
Yes, I would like that.
Is there anyone else who would need that? Okay.
Because then you can tag your test with the requirements of the
Yeah.
machine. So you can say, I have this 10 preconditions.
Yeah.
That may be distributed to any PC which gather these 10 preconditions.
Yeah.
So automatically distribute.
Okay. Now I just have to find time to actually do this.
The split between the slot, is it static or is it dynamic? If you say we can run 4 things in parallel, does it assign the test to the first slot, which is free, or it's static from the start?
You define the number of processes. By default, it uses the number of CPU cores you have, but it's static for the one execution. I mean,
So you need from the start to take into account that, for instance, that test is longer and these two tests are shorter, and you group the two shorter together and one longer, or?
There's one queue of test suites, and whichever of those processes is first ready will take the next one.
Okay, so it's
so it's kind of load balanced, or
Okay.
actually it's load balanced that way.
Okay, thank you.
I have just one question. Like, if your robot tests are relying on one database, and now you run multiple tests against this one database, and how can you like make sure that the tests do not interfere with each other?
Yes, that is the question. Well, the Pabot lib kind of helps that you can actually state that these test cases have different resources for the same time, so two different test executions don't interfere with each other. But currently, at least, you actually have to figure out what are those things that interfere, and it's not quite obvious if that is a bug in the system under test or not. So.
Yeah, what I did, I modified the Pabot. So when the test starts, I snapshot the database and try to give each instance of a Pabot a separate database. So they all start from the beginning, but this was really resource intensive, even if you run a headless browser against each database. And I maybe think if someone else has a better idea how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just know that you can first you can actually just try out if the parallelization works. If it doesn't, then you have to resolve the issues. And there are situations where you have to lock certain parts of the code there. And Pabot actually comes with those tools. You can lock that only one of the processes can execute some part of the code at some point, but then there is also the option that the system under test actually has a bug, and it's only revealed when your tests are parallelly executed, which means that your tests will flicker, which, well, you know, requires work.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.